BlazBlue Entropy Effect is sexy. It sings and dances the second you get your hands on the controller. This roguelite owes much of its beauty to the animations and models it borrows from the fighting series it's spinning off from, but they fit Entropy Effect like a glove. Each fighter moves around the screen with personality, and each strike connects with a satisfying thunk and a dazzling display of spell effects. This presentation and feel level polish is where the game is at its best. It introduces some unique spins to the roguelite formula by turning your successful runs into flavor that sprinkle themselves onto future ones, but samey build options prevent it from being a satisfying long-term play. The result is a stylish BlazBlue spin-off that's worth playing, even if not for as long as this genre label usually is. Entropy Effect's style is more than just the inheritances it gets from BlazBlue proper. Sure, they're a huge part of it. Each of the 9, soon-to-be 10 characters has a full suite of striking dashes, swings, and sprints. The gun and bomb-wielding Kokono hops on her scooter whenever she wants to dash, and the Ice Samurai Jin may have a traditional-looking one to start, but he can be upgraded into riding a shard of his favorite element that deals damage on the way in. Everything looks, feels, and sounds fantastic, and reinforces the unique personalities of each member of the roster. But elements that have been built around these fighter assets are no slouch. Environments, enemies, and even level transitions are stylish. The way the health recovering and malady draining rest areas visually deplete your entropy, the game's accumulating negative stat, is both a great touch and one of the many small ways that the game prides itself on being sleek and cool. There's a cyberpunk style that starts in the grim cityscapes you'd expect, but eventually touches some more forested and rural backdrops too. If you're here as a BlazBlue fan first and a roguelike connoisseur second, it's worth playing for that alone. It's well-produced anime action in a simple rogue package. When it comes to the inverse scenario, approaching BlazBlue despite its franchise and not because of it, you start to bump up against some awkward build pathing and run structure. The combat itself is great. You start with a spammable light and heavy, and a cooldown-based skill. It's a simple jumping off point that you'll add to as you progress through the run. Additional combos, attack modifiers, and sometimes entirely new moves accessed via directional input are on the table, coupled with character-agnostic passive boosts that you'll be picking between every room or two. These passive boosts are the lion's share of the build selection, and end up hamstringing their own creativity by tying every choice to an element. So many of the boosts reinforce damage of a particular element, so if you double down on fire passives everywhere, then you'll get multiplicative benefits when a fire damage go up option finds its way to your screen. That's only a slight oversimplification. Sometimes the element you want won't be among the 3 options presented, but I always found my most successful builds being the ones that adopted this philosophy. There's little reason not to. This gets exacerbated by Entropy Effect's meta progression. There is a traditional currency-based shop that lets you purchase permanent stat bonuses, but the real cross-run power comes from Legacy. Every run, successful or otherwise, gets added to an in-game Hall of Fame that lets you select 2 of those Legacy runs to accent your new run. You adopt an active skill from each of those runs as characters, and a passive of your choice, which will usually be a powerful late-game one. These aren't just small boons you start with, but oftentimes run-defining powers. Pick 2 legacies that prioritize the same element, continue to prioritize that same element in your new attempt, and you have runs where you can be extremely powerful, but also on autopilot, where your build is decided before the first enemy is even fallen, which kills a lot of the excitement. There's still enjoyment to be gleaned out of this system. It gives an invisible purpose to each attempt, allowing you to collect successful runs like their Pokemon cards. These legacies are also the core of BlazBlue's non-rogue challenge modes that sticks a powerful boss or enemy horde in front of you and asks whether or not your build can handle it, which is a powerful incentive. But maybe most damning is every run's insistence to end on a bloated final act. So many of the game's philosophies of speed, style, and quick transitions from encounter to encounter are dropped in Act 5. Every run doesn't just escalate to a final boss, but an entire final world complete with a format shift from menu-selected battles to Metroid-like mazes. It's like a roguelite within a roguelite, exhibiting exploration, killing enemies, and finding mini-bosses within a continuous labyrinth. Each mini-boss slain will nerf the final boss, but the time spent here is often fatiguing and just a little boring. Your build is usually complete by then, and the debuffs the kills apply to the final boss are static, resulting in few decisions to be made. It often feels like you're just pantomiming through this section, and it doesn't help the illusion that the mini-bosses are all the same guys you fight on the main trip anyway. It could have been cool as a novelty challenge you elect into for some runs, but as a mandatory run ender, it's a little too long, a little too decisionless, and a little too dull, especially compared to the 4 acts that precede it. Dull, too, is the cross-run narrative that links everything together. It makes the decision to follow a talking computer in a cyber world with equally personified computer friends. It tries to create some intrigue with your runs being monitored by Big Brother, but it fails to overcome the core problem that is not actually following the BlazBlue cast. It's quaint and well presented, but doesn't meaningfully attach itself to the reason you're here, and it's hard not to find yourself quickly skimming through it at best after a few hours. It's weird how much I like BlazBlue Entropy Effect despite its pitfalls. It's a game whose recommendation will be tied heavily to which itches you're looking to scratch. As a roguelite, its legacy system does create some interesting meta progression incentives, but their powerful boosts end up cannibalizing a lot of the build crafting opportunity. The runs themselves are a bit too long to be the snacky arcade thrills that the gameplay is, and the narrative is superfluous fluff. But the satisfaction and the hitting of dudes, and the way you look while doing it, and the pretty levels you do it in, really were enough for me, at least for a dozen hours or so. The enjoyment is front-loaded, but it is there. BlazBlue Entropy Effect may not be diverse or snappy enough to warrant permanent hard drive space, but you'd be missing out if you didn't flirt with it just a little bit.